Hey, good evening. So, this is the second edition of Walking with Grace. And I want to begin tonight with a story. So, a couple days ago, I saw a film that I had actually seen maybe 9 years ago. And it's about a phenomenon known as the trophic cascade. And a trophic cascade is when something happens at the top of the food pyramid, and the impact of that ripples down and affects the entire ecological system. And the subject matter that demonstrated this phenomenon was the reintroduction of wolves into Yellowstone National Park. Now, the wolves had been gone for, I don't know, maybe 30 years. The result of that was that much of the park was barren. There weren't as many trees as there had been before. The elk and the deer overgrazed. And so the trees really never had a chance to grow. And that's despite the fact that there was very generous hunting seasons. So when the wolves were reintroduced, there weren't that many of them, but the impact was almost immediate. They began to prey on the elk and the deer, and that changed the behavior of the elk and the deer. And they didn't just roam around anywhere anymore. They sort of stayed away from the areas where they might encounter the wolves. The other thing that happened was the wolves started preying on the coyotes. And so there were less coyotes, and that meant that there were more rabbits and there were more mice, and that brought back birds of prey. And because the elk and the deer weren't grazing or overgrazing the way they had before, cottonwoods and other trees began to grow, and that brought back other birds because now they had some place to nest. And of course, some of those trees have berries, and that brought back the bears who ate the berries and also the carrion. And then beavers came back, and beavers are like ecological engineers. So they built dams, and then with the dams, the otters came back, and then you had amphibians, and you had foxes and wolverines. And then something truly miraculous happened. The course of the rivers was changed. They became more narrow because there was less erosion, because there were more trees and more plants that stabilized the banks of those rivers. So when I think about the trophic cascade, it's a perfect metaphor for what happened when I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. Everything changed, and it changed my behavior. I learned that what I thought was a misread scan that showed a tumor on my frontal lobe was not a misread at all, but it was God granting me grace. I learned that the success I enjoyed when I was just a fan of Jesus was not because I'm so smart, but it was God guiding my life, even when I didn't acknowledge it. I learned that giving is something you do quietly. And the best way to give is when you give of yourself, because that's what God intends us to do. I learned that helping others involves sacrifice, and that's the way it's supposed to be. And that sacrifice, once you do it, feels more like a blessing than a chore. I learned that the love of family and friends is such a blessing in our lives. something to be cherished, and something to be nurtured. I learned to be still, to watch a sunset, and to watch a sunrise, and to watch my dog Grace charge across the beach chasing a ball like she had been shot out of a cannon. I learned that the memories we have of doing God's work are blessings that we can relive time and time again to nourish our souls and to restore our faith. I learned that God has a plan for all of us. He's not too busy, He's not too occupied, and He sees us. And when we are sad or grieving, our tears are collected like valuable jewels. And when our heart breaks, He feels it because we're His children. So the trophic cascade of my life started and changed everything when I gave my life and recognized Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And, here's the thing, it can happen to you too. He's waiting for you right now, just like He was waiting for me. And it's not too late. It's never too late. And He will welcome you the way that He welcomes me. And when you make that commitment, the angels in heaven will rejoice just the way they did when I gave myself to Christ. Have a blessed evening.